Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the long gray hallways of Roosevelt High School, somewhere in Queens, laughter echoed every morning. High-pitched, mocking laughter, sometimes barely contained, sometimes loudly assertive. Laughter that was anything but innocent. It wasn't the product of adolescent humor, but the cruel sound of the pack. At the center of these sidelong glances, these discreet shoulder nudges, these muffled murmurs in the lockers, Marcus Bell. 16 years old. Black. Round. Silent. Invisible to the teachers, too visible to others. He always wore the same baggy sweatshirts to hide his belly. Always that overly heavy bag, worn at the straps, filled with more books than necessary. He kept his eyes lowered, but he heard everything. The laughter. The remarks. The clicks of the phones filming. The barely disguised insults. He had no friends. During breaks, he ate alone at the back table. At the entrance, people pushed him aside without a word. In sports, he was always chosen last. Marcus was not alone. He had a secret ally, a silent passion that gave him a purpose every day. Because as soon as the 3:30 p.m. bell rang, he would quietly leave, without a word, and walk to the station, Rockaway Avenue, headphones on, hands in pockets. He took line 3 in the direction East Flatbush, a neighborhood that other students would never have dared to cross. There, behind a Haitian supermarket and a laundromat, an old rusty sign announced, "Darnell's Gym, since 1982. Here, we build men." Inside, the air was thick. The smell of leather, talc, and sweat clung to the walls. The heavy bags swung slowly, like tired pendulums. The wooden floorboards creaked under the young fighter's footsteps. And there, waiting for him, Coach Darnell, a colossus with a shaved head, a deep voice, and a rare smile. A former heavyweight of the 90s, his face bore the marks of his past, a scarred brow, a deviated nose, a right hand with worn knuckles. As soon as he saw Marcus walk in, he would simply nod. No blabbering. "Do you know why you come here, Marcus? To be strong." "No, son. You came here to learn how to stand up. Especially when the world is pushing you to fall." Each session was a ritual. Warm up. Ropes. Open rounds. Combinations. Punching bag. Reflexes. Strengthening. Coach Darnell didn't spare him. But he never put him down. He looked him straight in the eye. And that, to Marcus, was worth more than any compliment in the world. At school, meanwhile, Derek, Trey and Josh, the kings of the corridor, were doing their number. "Hey, bowling ball. Are you rolling or walking? How many pancakes did you eat this morning, Marcus?" 10. "Did you leave anything for the others? Dude, seriously, aren't you ashamed of sweating just walking up the stairs?" The worst part wasn't the words, it was the laughter of others. Those who said nothing but smiled. Those who filmed. Those who looked away. Every humiliation weighs an invisible blow, another sting in the already fragile armor of his adolescence. But Marcus didn't answer. He was inspiring. He was expiring. 3 seconds. Always 3 seconds. Guard up. Back straight. Cool head. Like Coach Darnell had taught him. What his torturers didn't know was that Marcus was no longer the boy they thought they were breaking. In the shadows, he was building, muscle after muscle, mind after mind. Because he knew. He knew what no one else knew. He knew that one day, they were going to find out who he had become. But that day, it wouldn't be him who spoke. It would be his fists. It would be his presence. It would bait a silence he would impose on those who had never known how to keep quiet. Every evening, Marcus trained furiously. Not a rage against someone. A rage cold, interior, carved out of silence and solitude. A rage that came from humiliation, rejection, years of being ignored, mocked, excluded. He punched the heavy bag until his forearms trembled. He did sets of push-ups until his sweat formed thick beads on the floor. He jumped rope until his calves burned. Every jab was a response to an insult. Every hook, a way to silence a laugh. Every dodge, a refusal to fall. He wasn't training to hit. He was training to hold. To stay on his feet. Coach Darnell, always calm, watched him out of the corner of his eye, sitting on a corner stool. A true fighter, Marcus, doesn't look for a fight. He is waiting for the right moment, Marcus often added. Exactly. He hits to lift himself up, not to crush. He who hits to humiliate is only a coward with gloves. Marcus nodded. Silent. He did not dream of applause or public revenge. He only wanted stand up straight, no longer lower your eyes, no longer be afraid to see his reflection in the locker room mirror. And he was succeeding. Slowly. Surely. He felt his body changing. His breaths were becoming longer. His gaze, more fixed. His fear, more distant. That Thursday, the rain fell like a curtain of gloom on the grimy windows of Roosevelt High School. The overhead fluorescent lights flickered faintly, casting a pale glow onto the cafeteria tables. The air was thick with the smell of processed pizza and dampness. Student morale was low. The sound of trays banging on tables barely covered the tired chatter. Marcus, like every lunchtime, had settled down in a corner, alone. He had just set down his tray, dry rice, a piece of overcooked chicken, a tray of vegetables he probably wouldn't touch. It was then that tray arises. Surrounded by Derek and Josh, already snickering in advance. Hey Marcus, have you seen your face in the mirror? It looks like a squashed donut. With melted icing. Peals of laughter erupted. Several heads turned. Some students reflexively took out their phones. Others smiled silently, uncomfortable but silent. As always. More this time, Trey didn't stop at the insult. He approached with slow, theatrical steps, like an actor sure of his stage presence. Then, without warning, he abruptly knocked over Marcus's tray. The entire meal slammed to the floor with a soft thud. Tomato sauce splashed onto the shoes. Silence fell, for a brief moment, suspended. Marcus remained seated. Immobile. His heart was beating. Strongly. But his face didn't move. He breathed in. For a long time. A very long time. Then he slowly looked up at Trey. And in that look, there was something new. Something cold, immobile, mastered. Something that announced the end of a cycle. He stood up. Not abruptly. Not angry. He stood up like a man who could no longer be brought down. He looked Trey straight in the eye. Then, calmly, without raising his voice, he said. See you on Saturday. At the Flatbush Community Gym. In front of everyone. If you're that strong, come show me. A shocked silence followed. Even Trey seemed to hesitate for a moment. Then he burst out laughing. A fight? You? Are you serious, fat guy? Do you want to die in public or what? But this time, it wasn't like other times. Because in the cafeteria, something had changed. Students had heard. Many. Glances were exchanged. Phones had filmed. The challenge was launched. And the information spread like wildfire, crossing the corridors, the private groups, the networks, the Friday rumors. Saturday. Flatbush. Marcus Bell vs. Trey Carson. The Invisible Boy vs. the Cafeteria King. No one believed in real luck. But everyone wanted to see. Everyone needed to see. The following Saturday, the Flatbush Community Hall was packed, fuller than Marcus could have ever imagined. Students from Roosevelt High School, entire families, a few curious teachers, and even neighbors from the neighborhood had gathered, attracted by the noise of the challenge. The atmosphere was electric, filled with murmurs, stifled laughter, and doubtful looks. Some were there for fun, to see the fat man make a fool of himself. Others were skeptical, convinced that Trey would fix this in a few seconds. No one believed for a second that Marcus had a chance. Marcus, in his corner of the locker room, felt his heart beating fast. Coach Darnell bandaged him silently, without a word. Then he placed a firm, reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have nothing to prove to these people, Marcus. You've already done it. This ring is your stage. Go show them who you are." The words were simple, but carried the force of a mountain. Marcus nodded, took a deep breath, and clenched his fists into his gloves. Then the lights went out for a moment, and the gong sounded, vibrating throughout the building. From the first seconds of the fight, the audience felt that something was not going as planned. Trey, arrogant, shirtless, smirking, walked up to Marcus, thinking he'd get this over with quickly. But Marcus didn't back down. He dodged with unexpected grace, his movements fluid, almost dancing. He didn't seek a head-on confrontation, he anticipated, he controlled the space. His jabs snapped, precise and calm, his hooks struck with controlled power, his movements were light, almost feline. The audience fell silent, mesmerized. This boy whom they had ignored, mocked, despised, was there, standing, and he no longer looked like the easy target they knew. Trey, growing increasingly frustrated, gradually lost his confidence. He had never taken a real beating. He discovered that day what it was like to see his guard crack, to feel the burning pain of a hook touching his jaw, to wobble, to fall. When Trey fell onto his back, the room fell silent. A heavy silence, charged with emotion, where one could hear the breathlessness of several spectators. The referee approached, counted slowly, then stopped the fight at the start of the second round. Technical knockout. Marcus didn't raise his arms in victory. He slowly removed his gloves, bowed respectfully to Trey, then left the ring without a word. No ostentatious triumph, no arrogance. Just the quiet dignity of someone who has finally proven their worth. In the weeks that followed, a change took place. The mockery stopped. Marcus was no longer the fat one. He had become the one who stood firm, the one who knocked out arrogance, but without ever giving in to hatred. He wasn't looking for fame. He didn't want to become a legend. He just wanted peace. The peace of being respected. The peace of looking in a mirror and loving what he saw. Years later, under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, Marcus Bell entered the legendary arena of the Golden Gloves, the legendary tournament that had forged so many champions. The crowd was dense, the murmurs excited, the flashbulbs crackled. But Marcus remained calm, focused, an imposing and poised figure, far from the awkward, bullied teenager he had once been. His gaze swept the room, recognizing the faces that had laughed in his face, those who had ignored him, those who had bet against him. But he carried neither resentment nor anger. Just a profound serenity, that of someone who has made peace with his past. His body was sculpted by years of hard work. His fists bore the imprint of thousands of hours spent training in dark rooms, pushing himself to his limits, getting back up every time he fell. Around his waist shone the coveted black belt, adorned with carefully embroidered gold letters. "Those who mocked me taught me how to fight. But I chose why." This message was not just a sentence. It was a testament. A tribute to those who had, unwittingly, lit the flame of resilience in him. A reminder that strength comes not from hatred or revenge, but from the conscious choice to fight for what truly matters: dignity, inner peace, self-control. When the gong sounded, Marcus raised his arms, not in defiance, but in victory. Not only on the opponent in front of him, but on all the shadows of the past. He had become more than a boxer. He had become an inspiration.